Yay! What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 341. As you notice here, we have birthday dogs joining us.
We brought our fans on today's show.
Yeah, this is a carryover from our Daily Brew live streams from the last week in celebration of...
Ethan had a birthday on Saturday.
I turned the big 4-0 on Saturday and brought some dogs along for the journey. So tonight, it's going to be the last night. We'll retire the dogs. They'll stay with us. We're adopting them. But we're going to retire them tonight. Welcome to the show. We're very excited. Tonight's show is going to be wonderful. We have a return guest who we had on towards the beginning of the pandemic last year. I think we actually had her on a couple of times last year, and she was just fantastic. Danielle Snyder is our guest tonight. We're going to talk to her about mental endurance, how we can tackle this new year, stay focused with training, allow grace. I mean, all these topics of conversation that I think we've been touching on over the last couple of months. Having someone like Danielle on, who's a licensed social worker and is a coach and deals with this on a regular basis with her clients, this will be a great sort of conversation starter and allow us to really dive into the topics that we're going to be dealing with in the coming months and year and stuff like that. So we're very excited to have Danielle Snyder on tonight's show. Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode 341. The show begins now. Ginger Runner. Yay! What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 341. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Mondays to spend a little bit of it with us. Our show tonight is actually a little bit later than normal. I feel like...
This is the old normal time.
Old normal time. We used to always do Ginger Runner Live at 6 p.m. Pacific. We moved it earlier to sort of accommodate East Coasters and some other live viewers from across the world and stuff like that. But this feels kind of comfy.
It also gave us a pocket, like a little extra pocket of time to do some filming and some work today as well.
Yeah, get excited. We filmed some stuff today, and we had a little bit extra daylight because normally we were doing Ginger Runner Live. So this is great. We're excited about our show tonight because we have a wonderful guest joining us here in just a couple of seconds. Danielle Snyder. She was a guest last year. We had her on a couple of episodes. She's a licensed social worker, really helps dial in mental endurance and is going to help us tonight maybe address some topics that a lot of you have brought up with us, whether in our daily live streams on Daily Brew or in comments and stuff like that, just in regards to tackling this year. How can we get past pandemic fatigue, or how can we deal with it, process it, and move forward with training and stay goal-oriented and all that good stuff. It's going to be a wonderful show. A lot of stuff to catch up on with Danielle. So we're excited to have her on the show tonight. It's not just myself. I'm also joined by the wonderful Kim.
Hi.
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 God, I feel like I haven't talked to you all day.
Today's been kind of nuts.
It has been. It's actually been really busy. I was like going to crack jokes of like, we're around each other all day, but I'm like, actually today's been pretty busy.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've seen you.
I do think I called you into the other room to see how crooked the back of my hair was, because I decided today was the day I was going to cut some of my hair off.
Self-haircut.
And happy pandemic, everyone.
See the perfect spot? That's what I did. I did that.
Welcome. If you're new here, we are live. We're going to be bringing Danielle on in just a second. Because we are live, you can ask our guest questions. So pop your questions into the chat room. We already have some great conversation rolling in. A lot of people are keen on the 6 p.m. time.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. It's funny because while we were doing 6 p.m. time slots for years, like for 4.5 years, we had a lot of people like, oh man, I'm on the East Coast. If only if it was a little bit earlier. We're like, okay, well, let's try to make it a little earlier. And now people, this isn't exactly right, but like now at 4 p.m., people are like, oh man, I wish it was at 6.
I think I know what the answer is. 5 p.m.
Yeah, I think we solved it. Before we even kick the show off and introduce our guests, we do have some individuals we'd like to thank at the top of every episode. That is our GR crew. Our Patreon crew. It is because of them that we're able to do this live show every single Monday, our daily live shows, as well as all of our reviews, films, and everything. We have some really exciting stuff coming up, and it is because of our Patreon crew that we are able to do that and focus that and this be our full-time job. So shout out to our GR crew. 2 individuals in particular at the top tier. Brian Sands, longtime supporter, just an incredible dude. He is on his own amazing journey, an inspiring journey of running huge ultras. He ran his first 100-miler last year and is training for Cocodona this year. And back, Rick Bjarnason, I'm actually really
Yes.
excited to welcome Rick back to Top Tier. Rick is a wonderful ultra runner out of Canada and works with the company cheekymonkeymedia.ca. It's his company. They do a lot of website design and back-end maintenance and stuff like that, website maintenance. And he is responsible for the gingerrunner.com website. We have some exciting stuff, hopefully in the works in the coming months and things like that. So Rick, shout out to him. He, I believe, is training for some pretty big Canadian ultras since the border is still closed. But he's got some big plans this year. It's pretty exciting. So thank you so much, GR crew and Patreon crew. We appreciate you so much. Let's dive into the show. Without further ado, our guest is coming to us from, I believe, still Oregon.
Yeah,
Still Oregon?
I'm in Oregon right now.
Still Oregon. So excited to have her back on, Danielle Snyder.
Yay!
Hi, Danielle.
Hi, guys. How are you?
How are you? Jinx.
First. I think
We're
I got
good.
it in there first.
Yeah, you win.
I also think Danielle helped us relearn how to answer when somebody asks you how you are. Like,
We quote you, Danielle, probably more than you're aware. At least once a
Fabulous.
week.
If you haven't watched the previous episodes with Danielle, I highly recommend going back to watch them. We've talked about having human moments.
That's it. Human moments.
I think we say that around our house a lot these days.
Mhm.
And when somebody's asking you like, how are you? You know, you're normally like, I'm fine. I'm good. It's like, are you?
Yeah, now we actually
Am I?
answer truthfully, and Danielle has really helped just in discussions on the show and helped our audience and our viewers and stuff sort of get in touch with like, wait, how am I feeling? And it's okay to talk about it because I think everyone's probably feeling something. So how are you?
Yeah. I'm 2020 good. Even though it's 2021, like I'm keeping the 2020 good, you know, hanging in there. No, I mean, I don't think it's honest to not say that things aren't challenging, but I also feel really grateful and fortunate for where I am and what I'm doing. So I kind of feel both ways, like very strongly at this point. How about you guys?
Yeah, it's been, I mean, there were 2020 had challenges. Of course, I can say that, and everyone is like, yeah, we all had challenges, and I'm aware of that. It was tough. You know, 2020 was super tough, and it's still tough. I'm not saying like 2020 is over, so now everything's great again. We still struggle every day with how is training, how are we going to progress with training, and how are we going to even focus this year? We're getting tired of all of it, really.
Or like just waking up and just feeling the heaviness of the day. Like you mentioned the Canadian border being closed. And of course, I'm Canadian. My parents are up in Canada. My family's up in Canada. And it's like, it's stuff like that. That's kind of that underlying rumble of what's actually still happening. And then just trying to like function as a normal human
just
adult on the surface.
Like stay awake.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I heard someone use the term recently, like the curtain of 2020 is still upon us, or the COVID curtain too. And I feel like, yeah, no matter what is happening, we still have this underlying condition of managing a pandemic with hope, but not as much hope as like one would have expected naively 9 months ago, where
Right.
and you know, in my brain, which I look back now, I'm like, oh, like what were you thinking? But in my brain, it was like, oh, it's 3 weeks of just not doing anything, and then we're gonna go back to normal. And it's like, no, like that was cute, but I mean, none of us have experienced anything like this before, and so we all have learned, and I'm calling it stretching. I think that's like a common term that I hear other people use about other things, but stretching mentally this year. Like we have had no choice but to really embrace our ability to stretch and grow.
It's been an interesting process because I think we're Kim and I don't want to speak for both of us, but I feel like I'm hyper aware of my ability to like look at the bigger picture and know that we're changing. And while we're processing trauma in real time, and it's the weirdest thing to be aware that shit is going on and trying to process it while simultaneously trying to be a part of it, especially with like racial injustice, everything from last year and things that are still carrying over, and we're still dealing with it every day. And you're aware of what you're dealing with while simultaneously trying to deal with it while simultaneously trying to travel through it and get out on the other side unscathed.
Yeah.
It's a weird path to navigate when it is the first time a lot of us have ever navigated anything like this stuff. It's weird to even talk about, right? It's like weird conversation.
Yeah, the concept of doing the best you can has never rang more true to me than now. We're all on this spectrum of making ethical decisions for ourselves and for other people, and then also trying to be aware and learn and grow about really the problems that have existed in our society for so many years that we just haven't addressed. And it's like the perfect storm where everything kind of came together, that no one could pretend that these issues and concerns aren't going on anymore. I don't like to sugarcoat things, but I really truly do believe that crisis prompts change. And throughout time and history, I just keep holding on to, we are so fortunate that we get this, not that we get, but that we're experiencing this opportunity to grow from this crisis. Because a lot of times, until we're pushed to stretch, we will stay in our comfort zone and we will live there, and it's our safety. And so I'm hopeful that through this crisis, we can really start to address some of the bigger concerns of injustices that exist.
I love the way you're phrasing it. It's impossible to ignore the parallels to just our sport, the nuance of pushing ourselves to our limits, and us experimenting with distance and elevation and everything that we do in ultra or any sort of endurance events. You're pushing yourself beyond your comfort. You're stretching, you're testing your limits, and you're going beyond them and seeing how you handle them and deal with them and process them. And you're stronger on the other side of it. So it's interesting to even just see those or hear those parallels as you're talking, and kind of like, man, it's weird that I got into the sport because I thought that was it. I was like, pushing yourself to your mental limits and your physical limits. This is it, the ultimate test of who I can be. And then life just comes along and goes, yeah, that was cute. Like, you think ultra's it. How about just life and everything else that goes on when it's out of your control,
Yeah. Well, I often believe like running is that microcosm for life. Like, those lessons are interchangeable. And something that I know about runners all the time is that physical strength is different than mental strength. And so even though you can physically get through really challenging situations that are really painful, that doesn't necessarily mean that mentally you have the same capacity. It's something that has to be grown or practiced.
I also want to catch up a little bit, just because it has been some time since we've had you on the show. We have a wonderful live audience here, very engaged in the chat room. I know Kim's already pulled a bunch of questions aside, so bring on the questions. We'll get to those for sure. We last spoke about you on this show when we had Emily Hellman on after her big PCT FKT.
Yeah.
She mentioned you being a part of that team and part of that crew. So what have you been up to? Obviously, adventuring, running. What's been going on in your life?
Yeah, I mean, so I got like little goosebumps when you said Emily. She's one of my dear friends. I'm not going to like repeat her story, but she reached out to me before going to do the FKT on the PCT. And that was one of my main missions behind being so outspoken about FKTs, was wanting other women to feel empowered to lift each other up rather than feel the need to cut each other or be competitors in a non-positive manner. And I kind of asked her, or invited myself. I was like, "Oh, do you want to pace her? I'll come." And then I joined her, and it was so magical for me to like witness watching her do something in honor of her mom, and also really happy that I wasn't the one suffering out there. Like, Yeah, this really sucks. I'm really glad that I get to go and sleep and eat, and you have to keep running. But yeah, it was a really empowering experience to be back on the trail with someone else going after the record and slaying it. Like, she just crushed it. So that was how my summer started off.
Did it inspire you to tackle anything big this summer? Because I know that you've been up to a ton with running and skiing and adventuring. It seems like you've gotten out and gotten up to some fun for sure.
Yeah, I'm not the best at planning. It's like the PCT, I think, I started with my best friend Jameson, and I think that she really helps me get better at planning. But I'm definitely one of those people that are like, adventure? Where? Like, let me know. Oh, you didn't invite me? I'm going to invite myself. Like, okay, I don't want to be there. I'm going to like follow behind you and like give you like cookies and hope that you accept me at one point. But I got a van, and I was living in Colorado, or staying in Colorado with my older sister. And I was watching the kind of in Boulder this year. They said that there was some of the worst wildfire smoke that they've ever seen. I mean, they were pretty much like surrounded by smoke all the time.
Wow.
And I went to Idaho to pace one of my friends at I Am Tough, which I felt like they did a really good job with the pandemic and honoring like the COVID precautions, even though, you know, I'm sure it was still risky. So it's kind of like the give or take. But anyways, at some point the air quality, like you couldn't see in front of you. Like it was so smoky that they're like, because I've run I Am Tough before, and the mountains that I've seen when we were running, they were non-existent. And I just, at the end,
was that smoke from Colorado?
No, so that smoke was from fires in Idaho.
Wow.
So, but the air quality was like 320, and we ran through the night, and it looked like the apocalypse. And then at the end, like we were coughing up black phlegm because like that was all what was going into our lungs. So the challenge is that I then went back to Boulder, and I was running in like air quality that was like 90 to 100, and I thought it was normal because I had been in air quality that was so high. And later I like had this epiphany of like how messed up is it that we are now in a situation where we think like 90 is an appropriate air quality, and I'm choosing to go out there. So I'm choosing to run in something like that. There are a lot of people who have to work outside who aren't choosing it. And so there's a long story short that I felt really called to combine my desire to support women and also like add in this element of climate change. And so I contacted this woman, Callie. She lives in Portland, and she's a glaciologist. And she talks a lot about how we have opportunities as individuals to make small changes. And so I raised money to support her funding to do the Kokopelli Trail. So it was a really long, drawn-out story to explain why I got there, but here we are. It was kind of like running the Kokopelli Trail. It was really long. It starts in Loma, Colorado, and it goes to Moab. And it's like I think 140-ish miles. And I wanted to take the women's FKT, which I believe is 33 hours. And I did a lot of research on how to follow the trail. I didn't do a lot of research on what the trail would look like, which was sand. All of the things that I hate, which looking back now, like, if you're going to research, like make sure you research everything. But I really liked the Kokopelli. He's this dude from the Native Americans that honors the fertility and rain and harvest. And so I thought it was like a good parallel. And I also thought he had like this really big belly, but it turns out it was a humpback. It wasn't a belly. So if you look up the Kokobelly symbol, he does not have a big belly. He just has a big back. So
I've never heard of this trail. Is it well known in the region in the Southwest? Is it a pretty big, is it well marked? Is it well traveled?
So it's well marked for mountain biking. So usually mountain bikers bike pack it. And so Emily came to support me, and my friend Keely came to support me, my older sister, and then also my friend Jameson. And I was on pace for the first 100 miles, which was best 100 miles I've ever run in my life. And then I failed miraculously. I had to walk probably like 30 miles of just like straight embarrassing suffering. And, I remember I had planned to do it in 33 hours, which I've been awake for 33 hours before. I did never imagine that it would take me, I think it took me like 39 hours. So not only did I not get my goal, I like really didn't get my goal. And I remember thinking while I was out on the trail, like, if I quit, then people won't know how badly I'm going to miss my goal, because I'm so shameful that I was that far off that I like quitting would feel better to me. And then I thought a lot about like the premise of why I was doing it, which was to raise money to help women continue with climate change work, and about the ability to learn from our failures, and that failing isn't inherently a bad thing. Like, I was so scared of failing that I almost stopped because I didn't want to feel that shame and kind of have to explain it to people. It was like, to me, talking about things publicly is one of the scariest things, because I don't want to fail. Like, what if people question who I am as a runner or a coach or a person? And I had to, like, 37 hours in, I had to kind of like sit down in the sand and talk to myself about how failing isn't the worst thing in the world, and that we grow from this and we learn from it. And I ended up finishing, and you know what? Failing wasn't that bad. Like, I survived it. I grew from it. I was over it in like 2 weeks. I never want to do that trail again. But I think that, we put so much emphasis on achieving our goals and failure being a negative thing, that there isn't a lot of discussion over what like failure teaches us. And it teaches us growth and humility. And if you try big things, sometimes you're going to fail epically, and it's okay. So that was kind of my big summer adventure, and it went exactly according to plan. I would not change anything about it.
That's so funny, because as you're telling the story and you're talking about how, if you had just quit, then how long it took you wouldn't have mattered, and people would have been like, oh, something went wrong, so she just stopped the FKT, and they don't have an idea of just how badly you missed your goal by.
And just kind of like slinked away from it.
Totally. Yeah. Like, that's the easy way to let that happen, right? But when I hear you say that it took you 39 hours, my thought is, oh shit, that trail is hard. Like, I don't look at it as, man, she missed her goal by 6 hours. Like, what's her problem? I go, oh crap, a 33-hour FKT, missing that by 6 hours means that something went wrong. The trail is really hard, and it must have gotten ugly out there, So I guess it's kind of perspective. And we love failure on this show. We love hearing stories of not getting it done, because it makes us mortals, like the ones who are just hoping to get by, squeak by.
Yeah. And sorry.
No, I realize there's tons of questions.
I was going to say, now I lost it. Scout in the chat room says, failures can definitely be beautiful. I love that Danielle is encouraging others to try and find that mindset. So crucial.
Yeah. And Bonnie says, as bad as I felt from failure before, I think in retrospect, sometimes pushing through a rough adventure shows strength more than the days I'm feeling great. Well done.
Yeah. And I mean, there was no crisis there. Like, it was just like, there was no threat to my health or anything like that. And I mean, I think one of the reasons I also share this is I get this question a lot of like, well, there are people who don't struggle with the mental side of it. And I'm like, I teach this day in and day out. And the first thing that my mind went to when I went off pace was, how are other people going to perceive me? And I think it's really important to discuss that we are all on a spectrum of self-doubt, no matter who you are. Like, you could be in a superhero, and I'm sure there's levels of self-doubt there too. So I think the more we can kind of discuss it and normalize it, the less shame there will be surrounding failure and questioning yourself and encouraging each other.
One thing I love about what you do, Danielle, and goes to your bio and your Instagram account in just regards to mental endurance and running coaching, right? So it's like the concept of mental endurance being a part of our physical journeys and how our mind is connected to that. And that's why we loved having you on the show before, and tonight is no exception. And kind of hearing these stories from you and your experiences with them is also really, really helpful, because you are going through it in real time as much as your clients, people who you probably coach through some of the mental sides of a lot of this. I bet it's great for you to have a place to draw from as well, where you can go, hey, I have these experiences, and these experiences made me feel this way and helped me see my perspective as being here. Let's get to some live questions. I realize that you've been super patient. We'll get to some live questions, and then we'll start talking about tackling 2021, I think.
People are just loving this conversation as well. And Camellia Mayfield is in the chat room. Camellia says, Camellia and Stevie say hi. We love you, Danielle. Yes, you can continue to ask questions. If I haven't asked your question yet, you can pop it back into the chat room as well. All right, where to start here? Question from Raul. Raul says, Danielle, as a coach, what were the issues that came to front this past year that wasn't as relevant the year prior? Also, what were the ones that surprised you the most?
That's a really good question. I think trying to help people find the compassion for themselves, because I like to think about terms in buckets, and a lot of our buckets are really full for energy wise. And so when it came to running, a lot of people struggled to find the energy because they were already so stressed. And helping people negotiate through that and manage it and still find time to run while honoring their stress levels was an interesting dance that I feel like a lot of coaches had to work on this year. I'm thankful because I have that background as a therapist to kind of highlight that. But in general, I think the providers or the people in our lives became more than just running coaches or more than just, our strength trainers. Like, they also were experiencing the pandemic and needing to support people emotionally as well. So it actually was a really good opportunity for me to continue to remind runners that you can't set aside your silhouette of stress when you go out for a run. Like, that comes with you, and we have to be aware of it and respond accordingly from a training perspective.
I love that perspective.
Question from Mandy. Mandy says, Danielle, you recently posted about a traumatic experience you had while running. What advice do you have for individuals in dealing with traumatic experiences? And for maybe, if you don't mind talking about it, maybe kind of share what happened for those who maybe don't know what happened, if you're comfortable talking about it.
Yeah. So a couple of, I guess it was probably like a month and a half now ago, I was running on this trail called Leaf in Portland. And I am an early morning runner. I've been running since I was 13. Most of it is early mornings alone. And so I think runners in general are vulnerable to catcalls and people being idiots, for lack of a better term. Maybe it's like beeping or calling things out. And occasionally, like, I have had an experience of being followed before, but never to the extent that had happened recently. And I was running with another female, and she shared that a similar experience happened to her. As I had a lot of fears about sharing what happened to me. It's complicated why. I don't really understand why, but it just I didn't want to cause trauma to other people by sharing. But anyways, I was running early in the morning doing speed work, and some guy started screaming. Should I give a disclaimer before I share this that could be scarring? Yeah, there's
Sure.
a disclaimer.
Yeah, I think so.
Trigger warning.
Trigger warning, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I was like, when I was saying it. Started screaming that he was gonna fucking kill me and just shouting obscenities. And the trail, I know it like curves right there, and I think he was on a bike. I didn't turn around. I just kind of jumped into a ravine that went straight down. And then I turned off my headlamp because I thought, like, I guess I was thinking that maybe he wouldn't see me, and it was full of thorns, and I just kind of like threw myself moving, thinking that I could outmaneuver him in the dark, or maybe I was too much work. And I heard him screaming for about like 20 minutes still up there as I just kept moving down towards the highway. And it's interesting because my intention behind sharing was to encourage other women to be more aware of their surroundings. I usually run with headphones on that trail, even in the morning. I don't know why I chose not to run with headphones that day, or why I chose to jump into the ravine. Like, I wasn't thinking, I just kind of acted. And afterwards I called the police. And as someone who has worked as a emergency crisis worker before, I am trained to know what time it is. I am trained to know exactly where I was. I'm trained to know exactly the words that are being said. And I could not tell them anything. I couldn't tell them like the exact words. I said it was dark, but I told them it was a half an hour ago, and it got light like 45 minutes ago. And so all of like what I learned, one of the things that I learned through the experiences was that it is really hard to talk about these things in real time, and to do the things that we are requested to do following something that happens. It's really challenging. So I went through this experience of feeling like I overreacted and I didn't do the right thing, and kind of all these really mind-blowing things that I have talked other people through, that I've never been in that same situation before, that I can now say like, oh, I get why there's, I get this understanding of shame now, that you feel like you do something wrong in these situations. And so since then, I would like to give this beautiful picture of like, oh yeah, like I'm back out there, and I can't imagine myself not running, but I can't, I am choosing at this point not to run alone in the dark on the trails. I have taken a self-defense course. I won't run without my phone now. I used to do that a lot. And I'm trying to remember that my intuition is spot on and it can keep me safe. But this was, 2-3 months ago, and I still am very very aware of not wanting to run alone right now in the dark. So
I mean, I can't. It sounds terrifying. The location, was it like a well-traveled trail? Like, were there other people? Were you able to find help, or is it remote or isolated?
So it is on the north side of Forest Park. It is less populated than the other side. However, like I did run by a guy runner, and I didn't know if it was him who turned around. But this is not, after posting about that incident, I had then subsequently heard about like 3 more incidents that have happened in Forest Park in the past month of like men or women, I guess. I don't know. Mostly it's been men following women very closely. And again, it's like this, I want this to be our magical place. And so it is really challenging to discuss because I feel like I'm in a weird way, like taking away like this ability for women to run freely and men. I don't know if I was a man, if he would have come after me. I don't know. Probably I was more vulnerable because I was a woman. But, I think that we have been experiencing something for a really long time, the pandemic. And we are seeing the best sides of people. And we are also seeing people who are really struggling and people who are really ill and not getting the help that they need. And the world, it feels, at least here, a little bit more uneasy. And, I think that means that we have to be aware of our surroundings. And as a female runner, that for me means, being a little bit more cautious, or a lot more cautious.
You posted about this on social media. Has there been support? Like, has the community been supportive? Like, have other people shared their experiences with you, similar experiences? I guess since sharing it, has it been, I guess, better in the sense that more people are sort of talking about it, or is it one of those like, maybe I shouldn't have shared this sort of things?
No, I felt really, really happy that I shared. People were so supportive. I feel like it really has gotten people discussing it. And if even one woman doesn't wear headphones anymore and is aware, then to me, it's worth it. The only thing that I think was an interesting perspective is that people automatically said, "I'm so glad you're okay." And I am so thankful I am okay. And there's like that other backdrop of physically I was okay, emotionally this has impacted me. And so it's been a good reminder too that like we sometimes have these expectations, to myself included, like I want to not be impacted by this anymore. I want to be like, I am a solo runner. I live in a van half the time. I don't want to be this to impact where I go, but also having space for, we are human. We get impacted by things. So yeah, overall, I'm really grateful for the community.
Thanks for sharing that, Danielle. When you're talking about it, there's a lot of women in the chat room who have had, a certain degree of that happen to them. And you kind of made a point of like, when you're talking about these things, it's hard not to, there's a part of your brain, or part of my brain anyways, when something like this has happened, it's like, you don't want to give the incident more power and kind of take away your joy or your right to do those things. But at the same time, I think there is good to be done by actually talking about it and sharing your story as well. So thank you for that. Lots of great questions. If you guys have any last minute questions, just pop them in the chat room right now. There's a great question from Carissa, and Carissa asks, what suggestions do you have for self-care for those of us who are the helpers supporting others through this time?
Such a good question. And I feel like sometimes I say these things and I'm like, you feel so strong in my brain that I want to repeat the statements that I've said.
And there's a little bit of glitching going on, Danielle. I don't know if you can hear us. There's a little bit of glitchiness happening. We'll let it kind of stabilize. I don't know if you can still hear us, Danielle.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we got you back. Can you hear us? Yeah, we got you back. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So yes, we didn't get the answer, but if you want to do it again, that'd be great. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's fine. I'm just so good at answering questions. You just wanted me to repeat myself.
I was just like, I need to hear that answer again.
Okay. Well, this is cliche, but I think a lot about the air mask. That when we used to ride on airplanes and things were so fun, the flight attendant always says you have to put that air mask on first. And anytime I think about air mask and boundaries, and if I don't put on my own air mask and say no sometimes, I cannot be a good support to other people. If I am not sleeping enough, eating right, exercising, I can't show up. I won't have the calmness or the ability to be emotionally supportive with.
Getting just a little bit of interference with Skype. So sorry. I'm so sorry. This is the first time it's happened all show, but there's just a little bit of interference. You were saying that by putting the mask on yourself, what was it? Boundaries cut out right there in regards to if you don't create boundaries for yourself,
you can't show up for other people.
There it is.
I was like, I should have a script because I just talk out of my head and I don't think when I'm talking. But if you can't do it for yourself, then do it for the person you're caring for. You will not be able to show up and be present and support them if you are struggling.
I'm sorry about the Skype thing. I don't know why. The whole show has been perfect, and all of a sudden, it was like right at the
wait till she answers this question.
The perfect question, the perfect answer. We got it. I'll puzzle it together in post or something. But thank you for your patience on that question, Danielle. I do want to touch briefly on here towards the end of the show, just in regards to a new year and looking. You kind of referenced it earlier as the curtain of 2020 and that sort of thing. As we begin to go into a new year with new training, new plans, new races, new goals in mind as athletes and runners from around the world, is there a way that we can approach this new year with that strength, with that mental endurance, maybe things that we've learned from the last year, or how can we get through the fatigue of sameness and frustration? And do you have any tips? Because I'm sure this is something you get with a lot of your clients a lot of the time right now.
Yeah. We're working real hard on being creative. And so I'm encouraging people to use the skills that they have started to really grow into from the past 2020 to now. And so if that might mean like if a race is canceled, how can you pivot or be adaptive and do something that still makes your soul full? Because I understand feeling disappointed about races, and it is really jarring to miss that social community. And at the same time, this is the reality that we're living in still. And we can spend a lot of energy fighting it, or we can find a way to be ultra runners and create our own experiences that fill our soul. One of the things that I've tried to also help people remember is that there are a lot of, and this isn't that we shouldn't feel burnt out, because this is hard. And we still have accessibility to the thing that we love. So holding those two things, I think, is really important right now, that a lot of people can't still participate in their activities. And we as ultra runners, like, I mean, I know some people who've done some really interesting things that, like, before this pandemic, I don't think they would have. As well as, I am so excited for when races do start rolling out, because I am convinced that people are going to show up and be stronger than ever. Because there is this fuel that we've never experienced before of something that we really want being taken from us. And so trying to put that energy and make it into like gasoline to keep you going so you can.
I think I hadn't really thought of that. I think we've touched on it on this show, but I don't think we'd really had it phrased like that, where we've had something taken from us. And looking at racing and when things, when race schedules begin to sort of fill up, in the sense that races are happening and inter-country travel is happening and interstate travel can happen, that it is going to be sort of the return of trail running and ultra running and races, and people are going to be fit and ready to go and
just excited,
more excited than ever to toe that line and crush it. Because we're seeing a little bit of it now as races happen in very small pockets, but just thinking of like when races can actually come back safely and on a bigger scale, just thinking of the number of people.
And we can also like have the community aspect of it as well.
The parts of the races that people also participate in for, like, I'm there to be a part of a community, to be with all these other people enjoying this experience. It's going to be wild. I hadn't really thought of like gasoline and being able to pour that on this fire of just like anticipation and excitement. It paints a fun visual for me, I think, just the excitement. Maybe one more live question before we move into our after show with Danielle Snyder.
Sure. Deb has a great question. Deb says, Danielle, any suggestions on motivating a friend to get back out running again when she has lost all desire to get out there?
That is really challenging position to be in, especially because you know or you believe that could help her. So the first thing that I would do is validate how they're feeling and validate that things are really hard for them right now. That kind of helps them feel heard, because a lot of times if you're not feeling heard, then you can stay kind of stuck more. And then I might offer, if they're in the area, to come out and just meet you for 5 minutes. And then they can decide if they want to stay or go. In general, like if anyone is struggling to get out there for a run, I ask them to give me 5 minutes, try it. And if they feel miserable, they're allowed to go right back in their house. But if they feel good, to try and go for 5 more minutes. So breaking it up into a little bit more manageable pieces.
I love that. I think that's a great approach to it.
Totally. And I love manageable. Like the first part of that advice too, versus just being like, no, come on, we got to go do this. It's like, actually hear the person, let them know that they're hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been feeling this, and I hope that this is the case, but I feel like people are listening to how people are feeling more, as opposed to just like if someone is saying, here's, I'm not connected to running, or I'm feeling disconnection, that people are actually hearing that and understanding there are a myriad of reasons why that could be happening. And we're finding people here who are like, how can I help them without being the person that's like, what's wrong with you? Like, let's just get out there,
Yeah.
It's hope. I'm hopeful. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier in the show in regards to not necessarily the sugarcoating or the silver lining, but just the idea that out of trauma and out of everything that's happening, maybe there is some growth and some moving forward. And maybe that is people listening. Maybe it's people understanding, or at least having an open mind or an open heart.
Yeah.
Our guest tonight, Danielle Snyder, is one of our favorite guests. She's fantastic.
Do you say this for all the guests?
Only you. And I have to say it for Kim. Kim makes me say it. But truly, Danielle, we get to have a conversation with you that we don't necessarily get to have with other guests, because you have a knowledge and an education and an experience in dealing with the mental aspect of running that a lot of our guests just don't have. And so having that sort of background You deal with it with your clients on a regular basis. It provides such a great breadth of knowledge for us to just soak up. I do want to give you a chance to talk about your business, where people can find you as we wrap up the show here. Where can people reach out and get some guidance, get coaching, or get mental endurance help? Where can people find you for more?
You can shoot me an email at Danielle, DanielleRSnyder @gmail.com. It's probably the easiest way to find me. Or if you want goofy stories, semi-serious stories, you can also look me up on Instagram. Oh yeah, I probably should give my name too. It's DIELLE Smells. And I want to thank you guys too, because I haven't talked about that story outside of like posting it and telling my good friends, but speaking it feels very differently. And so I really appreciate you guys giving me that platform to discuss it, even though it felt like I was stretching in the moment to chat about it. But I'm glad that you guys help your audience have the space to talk about those things. So thank you.
Least we can do. When we read that post, we had a good conversation in regards to it. There are, again, varying levels of experience with this. We have both experienced that. Kim has also experienced different things. And we have stories from very recent. When we read it, it was like, of course, I'm not a woman, and I can't necessarily relate to that aspect of it, but just the fear and everything associated with the story is very real. And the fact that you were willing to talk about it on our show tonight, and we did check with Danielle beforehand, so it wasn't like we just brought it up and, hey, let's talk about it live. But it was a very wonderful thing for you to do for our audience and to make it part of the discussion.
Yes.
We are going to move into the after show. Danielle, do you have a couple minutes to join us for the after show?
Yep.
Great.
Fantastic. So what's going to happen here is we're going to wrap up our main show. We appreciate everyone who tuned in live tonight. We are going to move into our after show. And if you would like to join our after show, it's very easy to do. You can go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. For as little as $2 a month, you get to access all of our after shows, archives, everything. We also do a daily live stream called Daily Brew, which we do every single day. We're up to 200 plus episodes, almost 300 episodes.
Yep.
And that's at the $5 level and above per month. You get daily live streams and lots of fun conversation. And Danielle will join us for tonight's after show. Do we have a GR crew member of the week?
I do have a GR crew member of the week.
I'll give you a second. Again, a huge thank you to our GR crew for allowing us to do Ginger Runner Live and all of our reviews and films and everything like that every single week. We are going to wrap up this main show with our new segment that we like to call our GR crew member of the week, where we get to recognize a fantastic member of the community who goes above and beyond, does something badass or awesome or pushes themselves. Kim, who's this week's GR crew member?
This week's GR crew member of the week is Till. And Till says, I ran a 5K track time trial today and set a nice PR. I was aiming for 22:30 and finished in 20:49. It's kind of wild to me that I've managed to pull this off. To be honest, around 6 months ago, I thought I'd never be able to run again due to my chronic health issues. I was so happy. I cried in my cool down. Congratulations, Till. That is smoking fast.
It is very fast, Till. That is fantastic. Congratulations to you, my friend. Not only on your accomplishment, but also being the GR crew member of the week. We're so happy to have you be a member of the crew. We're going to go right into our after show. A huge thank you to our guest, Danielle Snyder, tonight. Again, reach out via email or on Insta. Seek help if you need it. She's fantastic, and we cannot recommend that enough. I know members of the community also reach out to her, so it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you guys next Monday, or we'll see you in the after show. Okay.
Thanks, all.
Good night.
Bye.
Ginger Run.